So how do you not get affected by other people? And it's a common question that so many people come over to me and they ask me, because they're like, Ben, I'm just like minding my own business. Somebody gives me a look, somebody says something, somebody does something, and then all of a sudden I get so affected by it. And how is it that I can stop worrying about what other people think and I can just do my thing, not be affected by them, and not worry about what's going on? And I think a lot of people nowadays are very sensitive to other people, for better or for worse. I think on the one hand, I think there's a positive aspect to that, meaning we're trying to understand other people. We're trying to be, balancing our emotions with other people, recognizing what other people want and whatnot, but also realizing that for ourselves, that if we're constantly being affected by other people, if we're changing ourselves, if we're emotionally getting thrown off on our day because somebody said something to us or looked at us the wrong way, so there's really something that over there that I think we can all start to be looking on and working on. I think it's something that most people don't necessarily know what to do. They don't necessarily work on themselves in this aspect. And if we can start to say, hey, you know what is the one thing I can do? How can I just start to switch this? How can I really start to make this thing feel a little bit different in order for us to start to do the thing that we want and feel the way that we want to be feeling? Then I really believe we're going to be able to take advantage of those opportunities and to really see what it is we can do. So today I want to talk about a bunch of different techniques or tools that you can start to use in order just to allow yourself to not be affected by other people, that we don't have to have the rest, our whole day ruined because somebody else might have said something to us. And it's really important to be able to work on these things, because if you are somebody who is affected by other people, by your, just getting more emotional, so then we should try to figure out what it is that we can do. And we're going to be sharing those tools today. So the first thing that I try telling people, the thing that we have to understand is that usually when something happens to us, so we initially, the first thing is we end up reacting in a emotional state. We end up like giving ourselves this feeling inside of us, and we start to end up getting a little bit like pained inside. And what we have to recognize and what we have to realize is that on the one hand, yes, like that is the reaction, but we have to try to like take a break. We have to try to separate the two things that are going to be going on. And if we can start to realize that, hey, I can start to experience something. Somebody could do something to me. I don't have to react right away. And we're stay just like, in this gray zone of like, I'm not going to judge anything right now. I'm not going to judge the other person. I'm not going to judge myself. I'm not going to judge the situation that's happening. And really just step away from this emotion just for a couple of moments. So then we'll be able to really start to attack it a lot better. And I think our nature is to react right away. And I think so many people react right away. And because of that, they emotionally get involved, because once you emotionally get invested, it's very difficult to pull back. And what we have to start to do is, okay, like something happened, take a deep breath and really just say, okay, before I start to get affected by this, what is it, something that I can do? How can I start to really see what's going on here? And how can I start to frame it differently to understand what's really happening over here? And I think if we could start to recognize that, I think that's really the first step. It's noticing what is going on here. What is something that I can start to switch? How is it that I can make something different over here and not emotionally start to get, emotional about it, right? So we have to start to realize that. And if we could start to do that, just take that step back, then we could start to see how it is we can react to it. And one of my clients actually uses this technique all the time, because when somebody says something to him, he used to just snap back, he used to just make a comment back. And one of the powers of not responding or not really getting emotional about it is that we can start to see what's happening over here. Because at the end of the day, if somebody else is affected by something that we are doing, so we have to start to ask ourselves, is the thing that we're doing wrong or not wrong? And we need to try to figure that stuff out. So once we can start to do that, then we have the ability to start to say, hey, these are all the different things that we can start to do. And once we start to do that, then we have the moment of clarity where we can start to say, okay, what's really happening over here? How is it that I can start to react differently? What's going on over here? Is it me? Is it them? Like, what's happening over there? And then we could start to see what it is that we're doing and how we don't have to react in such a way. And I think so many people have such a hard time for that initial reaction. So if we could just give ourselves permission to, before we even try to work on ourselves, before anything, it's just, let's just take a break before something happens. Somebody cuts us off on the highway. Somebody might give us a certain finger on the highway. Whatever it's going to be, if you could just take a step back and not react right away and just give yourself a moment, what's going to happen is you're going to start to separate the two, and then you'll be able to more proactively understand the situation and react appropriately in the way that you want to be reacting. And I think that is personally the first thing that we need to start to do. And once we recognize that, then what we have to do is we have to try to figure out how can we control our emotions. Because let's say it's something that the other person did to us, and it's something that we're really affected by. So what we have to recognize now is that how am I reacting? Is this appropriate? Is this not appropriate? Is this something that I want to be? Do I want to be reacting like this, or do I not want to be reacting like this? And I think once we start to say, I don't want to be reacting like this, but like emotionally, I just can't do it. Emotionally, I just can't get myself out of it. What we really have to realize is the win itself. What we're trying to do in the situation is we're trying to win for the next time something like this happens, and we're not going to emotionally get involved. And I think that's where a lot of people start to get tripped up, because they're so upset about themselves in the moment that they've reacted a certain way. And what we have to start to do is we have to say, hey, the win is not necessarily this opportunity that we have in front of us. The win is going to be the next opportunity we have in front of us. And I think so many times people are so bombarded on themselves that they get so much more down, they get so much more frustrated, they get so much more emotional because they quote unquote failed this opportunity. What we have to understand is like this is an opportunity to get curious, to get the feedback, and to try to give ourselves a few moments, a few seconds of not being able to react. Because then the next time something like this happens, we'll give ourselves a few more moments and a few more moments. And then all of a sudden we can detach ourselves from the experience that happened. And then next thing you know is like we're not getting emotional about these things. And I think that is so important, and to not be judgmental on ourselves, because we love beating ourselves up. We love trying to tell ourselves that we can't do X, Y, and Z. And if we could start to recognize, hey, these are all the things that we need to be doing, then guess what? Then we have the ability to really start to take that action. We could start to do the things that we want and really start to move forward in all different areas. And so many times people don't understand that, like the win isn't necessarily this thing, it's the next thing. And there's a client of mine that I'm working with, another client of mine, who is trying to work on, he's on his basketball team and really trying to step it up in terms of his, his game and everything, his mindset and everything like that. And whenever he has an opportunity where he's not playing so well, so he's not looking at it as like, I'm beating myself up about all the things that are going poorly. It's how can I take this as an opportunity? So for the next time, I know that I can overcome this. How can I build this in my mindset where I'm saying that if I do miss a bunch of shots in the beginning of the game, then I'll be able to overcome it. So the next time I miss a bunch of the shots, then I'll also be able to overcome it. And I think that's something that so many people don't necessarily work on, and they're constantly focused on the present, which is important to be present. It's important to separate ourselves and our emotions and to try to get curious about what's going on and why it's upsetting us. But then on the other hand, we need to recognize that the win isn't now, the win is for the next opportunity. Because over time, if I could say over the next month or 6 months, whatever it's going to be, that you're going to be able to emotionally not be affected when other people say or look at you the wrong way. So I think you'll take it. You'll for sure take it. And what we have to realize is that we're so impatient with the work that needs to get done. And we can just start to say, hey, let me just step back. Let me just start to, get curious about what is really going on here. Why is it that I'm getting so emotional? Why am I, being affected so much by this person that I might not even know? So we have to start to recognize that there's certain things that we can start to do and really start to recognize when it comes to the work that we want to be doing. So number one is to recognize that we have to sort of separate our reaction time from the event that happened. And number two is to recognize that also the win isn't necessarily in the moment. The win is for the next opportunity. What we have to start to do is we have to start to get curious about why it is we're reacting the way that we're reacting. And I think once we're able to do that, then we're going to have the ability to start to figure out what it is that we're going to be doing and really make sure that it's not going to happen the next time. And we do that. So we're going to, yeah, okay, better. That's nice. So how do I win the next time? Is that we have to start to work on ourselves. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily do, or they don't think about themselves. So if you find yourself constantly reacting yourself to other people, if you're constantly working on yourself to say, hey, you know what, there's a lot more going on here. There's other things that are happening over here. How can I work on myself before I get into this opportunity? How can I work on myself before the next time somebody cuts me off on the highway? How can I work on myself before somebody else makes a comment to me? And what we have to start to recognize that we can work on that beforehand, whether it's through deep breathing, through just like mindfulness, and just recognizing, hey, what are the things that I can do in order to build myself up? And whether it's you're somebody who doesn't necessarily can't handle other people's opinions, so it's reframing it in a different way. And the most simplest way that I like to reframe it is, what's your favorite color? Let's say your favorite color is blue, and I say my favorite color is green. So you're not offended by that, right? So why is it that we get offended when somebody else has a different opinion, a political different opinion, or maybe even like sports different opinion, or whatever it is, and we get so uptight about it, and we're so passionate about it, which is like so beautiful on the one hand, but also recognize that a lot of times it's not necessarily something that we should be wasting all our energy for. And once we do that, then we have the ability to recognize that. And if we could start to recognize that, then we have, the things that we can start to do. So realizing that number one, we don't have to be worrying about other people. We don't have to, we could be okay with other people's opinions, and working on that in between these opportunities to allow ourselves to be working. Somebody said over here, self-checking. Exactly. We have to know who we are and how it is that we are affected and how we work. And once we do that, then we have the ability to really start to move forward and to take advantage of those things that we want to be taking advantage of. And I think that's something that's so key that so many people don't know, is that they don't know themselves. They know they react. They know they do X, Y, and Z. They might know they get angry, or they might know that they're impatient, but they're not working on that. And we have the ability to work on it. And I think that's where most people, and honestly, that's where I think where coaching is like the most powerful, because you have somebody who's constantly saying, okay, what are these things that we need to work on? And then how can we work on them? And then holding you accountable to make sure that you can start to work on those things. And I think if we could start to recognize that, I think that is something that is so powerful when it comes to all the work that we want to be doing. So recognizing that if we could start to say to ourselves, okay, somebody else has an opinion and I'm being affected by it. How can I work on myself differently? How can I reframe this so the next time somebody else has an opinion about me, I'm going to be able to win that conversation. I'm going to win by not getting emotional that time. And I think that is something that is so important when it comes to all the work that we're looking to do. And this goes a lot into people pleasing. And there are a lot of people out there. I have a whole YouTube video. If you haven't checked it out, definitely check it out on YouTube, my channel, Unlocking You. And what we talk about is this idea of people pleasing, and why so many people are so affected by they can't say no to other people, and how many people's lives have really been really affected by the fact that they just couldn't say no. And it's so unfortunate that people, literally married people, like I've spoken to people who literally married people, have like a huge family, which they're very happy that they have the family, but you can tell like that wasn't their ideal, but they couldn't say no. They didn't have the backbone to do it. And how many more things, and that's an extreme thing, but how many day-to-day things are we not saying no to? I was just speaking to a guy, a client of mine, who literally has lost over $30,000 because he couldn't say no, or he couldn't ask his client, or the guy that he was his customer, to start paying him because he was the nice guy. Like, that's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? If I would have said, hey, can you I'll pay you $30,000 to like just ask somebody to pay you money that they do owe you. It wasn't like they don't owe him, like they owe it to him. And of course you're going to do it, but we have to understand that there's something over there. There's a fear going on there. There's something that's holding us back from really taking that action. I think once we can start to recognize that, once we can start to feel that, then we can start to really figure out who we are and start to work in that and not get affected by other people. Because people pleasers, and the reason why I talk about people pleasers is because I was the biggest people pleaser. I have the most experience being a people pleaser and saying yes to everybody. I had such a difficult time saying no to other people, and just recognizing that, what we can do is we can start to work on ourselves. We can start to say no to ourselves. And it's the work in between that's going to be a thing that's going to really help us. Another area, though, where we have to recognize when we're starting to feel affected by other people, when we're starting to say, other people are starting to say to us, hey, I looked at you the wrong way, or I might have said something, whatever it is, and we start to get affected, is we have to actually take an audit about our own self-esteem and our own confidence. And it's so important because so many people don't have that strong confidence, that self-esteem. I work with, I work with young adults now. So if I work with 15 to 23-year-olds, and one of the questions I ask on the second week is, what would you rate yourself from 1 to 100 in terms of your own self-worth, that you really can like yourself? And it's surprising, but most of them, I think everyone except for 3 people or 4 people, were in the 60s, which is like crazy. Like you're like getting like an F pretty much in like your own self-worth and self-confidence. And if we can start to say, hey, you know what? No, I can like myself more. I can show myself more. I can trust myself more, that even though I'm doing something that really is upsetting somebody else, I'm okay with that. And we're not talking about like upsetting somebody else on purpose. We're not talking about that thing. We're just saying like, I'm just driving the way I want to be driving on the highway. Like, we're not, I'm saying? It's not like we're being a jerk to other people, but we're just saying like the thing that you're doing that is nothing wrong in your life or the way you think things are going on. So why could we not just step into that? Why can we be more of that? And I think that is something that is so important when it comes to the success that we really want. And we want to have that ability to move forward. So if we could start to recognize that and start to understand that, then we have the ability to really move forward and really take advantage of that. And that is something that so many people don't necessarily work on. Then you might ask yourselves, okay, so how do I work on my self-confidence and my self-esteem, my self-worth? And I always like trying to do the things that you should be doing. We all have things in our lives that we know we should be doing, whether it's eating healthier, whether it's working out, whether it's reaching out to certain people, having a certain uncomfortable conversation, right? Those things that we know are the basic things that we're going to just enhance our lives and we're not doing. We got to step into that. We need to do that. We need to try to figure out where it is that we want to be going. How can we break it down to smaller steps, reverse engineer, and really start to just take those small chunks, and really start to take those small steps in order to make sure that we can start to do that. And I think once we do that, then we have the ability to move forward and to really take advantage of that. And the last way to not get affected by other people is that there are a lot of like messed up people out there. There are a lot of like just angry people out there. And when somebody does something to you, it doesn't necessarily mean it's you. And I know this is like, yeah, but like, let's say I did do something, right? So like, yeah, but like sometimes like you don't have to react that way to other people. Like, do you react that way to other people when they do things to you? And what we have to ask ourselves is like, did I really do anything wrong? And if the answer is no, then like it's on them. Like that's their problem, and they need to figure that out. And that's also something that we have to work on in between times, and in between, from one one instance to the next instance, but recognizing that there's like so much more there. And I think it's something that is so powerful. So just a quick recap in terms of what we spoke about and how we cannot feel affected by other people when somebody does something to us. Number one is we have to take that separation emotionally. We can't emotionally react right away. Give ourselves like a few moments, it could be even 2 or 3 seconds before you start to react emotionally, because once you emotionally react, then it's going to be very difficult for us to, be the way that we want to be. Number 2 is recognize that the win isn't necessarily in now in this moment. The win is for the next opportunity that we have. And what we have to do is we have to learn and get the feedback based on this experience that we want to make sure that we could do the things that we want. Number 3 is that we have to work on it in between. So if we know we're somebody who gets emotional about certain things, if we know we're somebody who gets angry or, anxious or whatever it is, like we could work on those skills, we could work on those tools and do it before it pops up. If you're somebody who knows, on airplanes, you get like stressed out about the lines. I'm just raising my hand over here. Then like you got to work on that beforehand before you go to the airport. Like once you're on the airport, like it's already too late. And what we could do is we could start to work on those different things and recognize that whether it's people pleasing or being, just having a different opinion than other people, that is something that's going to be okay. The next thing is recognize that we have to build our own self-esteem, our own self-worth, and really just try to build ourselves up. And lastly, it's very possible that it's not us. It could be them. And if it's them, it's nothing to do with us, and we have all the right that we want in order to make those things happen. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We'll see everybody on the next one, and have a great day.